Welcome to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Richard Miller, and my co-host, like many of the players, his hair's got a bit long and a bit fluffy, and there's a fairly good chance he'll cramp up before the end of the show. It's Dr. Luke Gledall. How are you doing today, Luke?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Oh, good too. Yeah, thanks.
And I want to wish you a happy birthday for when this comes out tomorrow, as it's going to be your birthday.
Thanks so much. Yes, 21
happy
again.
Birthday, Richie Miller.
Yeah. How's your week been prior to today's festivities?
It's been all right. I've been watching a bit of the football that is back, included with the absolute joy fest that was the Pigs versus Villa. The goal that wasn't. I love the commentator bringing it back with talking about the joy of resonance of boot on ball.
Oh, lovely. That's very good. It's poetry.
And yeah, kind of watch that. If I remember thinking, I'm glad we don't have fan reactions, but maybe I could identify with the Villa fan in Chicago who, when they cut to him during a Villa chance, was too busy looking at his phone.
Yeah, definitely. So what have you made of all the various... So there's a lot of new pomp, and it feels so American to me. I don't know whether that's sort of slightly racist, but all the new bits and pieces around the football match just all feels a bit kind of plastic. And
well, it's incredibly American. I mean, we can get into that, but I mean, obviously with iFollow today, we had the kind of in-match kind of graphics that felt a bit kind of NBC. It kind of felt like promoting something that was going to be on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Central. It's that kind of jazz, really.
The hit new comedy that's taking America by storm.
I've suddenly got memories of you talking about watching, I think, one of the few UFC matches I've watched that you've probably matched as well. But they were talking about Guy Ritchie's new film, The Gentleman.
Oh, yes.
Back in cinemas. He's never made a mishit.
He only makes classics. Guy Ritchie is back. Guy Ritchie makes his return to the gangster genre. Yes.
We've stricken that Madonna film from our memories.
Basically, all of his output since probably the first film has been stricken from our mind. That's a very odd, very American sportscaster thing, is that kind of advertising Tourette's.
Yes.
Just in the middle of a sentence, their eyes glaze over and they blurt out a catchphrase for some booze or a betting site or something else.
Yeah, there's that. I quite like some of the Prem games I've seen putting up massive giant flags in the crowd, which who knows when they're going to use these again after this season. But it's kind of cute. I don't know. It was kind of nice to see that. They're actually looking to kind of... It's like they've got an absolute giant wall in their house and thinking that I'm just going to put, just put some art up, just clutter this wall, basically.
Or like I've seen it advertised on Instagram, the things that if you've got a terrible sofa, you can buy just a massive sort of bendy sheet to put over the whole thing and pretend it looks nice. So it's a bit like that for whole stands. And I think my particular highlight on that was Man City had one that said, "We're not really here," which is quite funny.
Yes. It relates to one of their chants, isn't it, when they're in League One, isn't it? Yes, yeah. And then I saw that Man City had like the fan wall, the video fan wall, which felt a bit kind of low-grade U2 stadium tour.
I believe that is going to be a fixture for all the Premier League games. I might be wrong, but I believe that's going to be there at all the grounds. But that is weird. And it kind of, I think they get paused before set pieces as well. So it's, It's very strange.
It's very strange. And then the stream, the piping and the fan noise as well. But, I noticed that I think the first one, they just carried on the same bed of noise for the soundboard for the fans. There was no applause. And I'm like, you're going to do this properly?
Well, how do they... I'm wondering how it works. Is it somebody literally sat there going, "There's a shot, press the shot button"? Because there was definitely I was watching a bit last night, and it was the Norwich Southampton game, and it was weird, very weird towards the end. So there was the dying embers of that game. There was a very tame shot that kind of went through a couple of players' legs, and the goalkeeper just kind of, the kind of the old cliche, could have dropped his hat on it. So he just kind of bent down and casually picked up this ball, and the sound went, "Oh!" and then like a big round of applause, and then full-time whistle went, and there was a huge like explosion of clapping and cheering, despite the fact that the home team had lost 3-0.
Yes.
It's very strange.
I know.
I think, on balance, my preference is not to have the fake crowd noise.
So that wonderful tweet which was like, finally we get to hear the great tacticians talking of the game, and then it cuts to Wilder going, "Bashy! Bashy!" Whatever he grunts out at his players with a Y on the end. Anyway, I'd just say behind closed door matches, they're very much the stranger of football. We're lying to ourselves that this is this is something else, isn't it? Really, bunch of teenage boys trying to deceive themselves.
I thought particularly today, I mean, not to kind of tread on the toes of what we're going to talk about, but with all the subs as well, it really, 60, 70 minutes in today, felt very, very pre-season friendly.
Oh, yes.
It felt like England versus Serbia. Nobody cares. The pace had dropped altogether.
Yeah.
It got very disjointed. It's weird. It's a very odd experience, it's got to be said.
Anyway, episode 50 of Different Gravy. We're back from the exile of disappointment. We're knocking on the door of faint hope. And it's soup from a stone, ladies and gentlemen, but the stone is pelopessy, and we have not enough expensive parsnips to take that stony taste away.
You've long held the opinion that parsnips are the answer to pelopessy, haven't you?
So yeah, we just need some parsnips.
At least a strong root veg. It doesn't need to be
a root veg. Just bang some root veg in there. That'll make you forget that Joey P's even there. What a crazy thing that we're actually back talking about sport on our 50th episode. It makes it almost seem like we've planned the entire pandemic, doesn't it, Rich?
Yes, and we've seen those rumours online. We will neither confirm or deny what people are saying online, but I think you've got very innocent reasons for your trip to Wuhan, haven't you?
Very innocent trip. Very innocent.
You just love hanging out at that place. It's great. We all know it. It's one of the real highlights.
It's just an energy in the air, I'll describe it.
Should we, to get away from this silly cul-de-sac we've walked ourselves down, shall we? We should do this little number.
Breaking hoo-hoos.
Not a huge amount in the way of news, but there's this ongoing, despite the fact football is back, there is still probably a lot of that, tin pot brinkmanship happening with contracts and extensions and who's going to play when. So we've had it confirmed from Gary Monk directly that all of the kind of players that are in that limbo land have been offered a deal that kind of covers them till the end of the season, presumably for some of them whilst we continue a kind of ongoing negotiation for a longer term deal. For some of them, maybe they've been told they're not going to be back, and they're still sort of happy might be happy to sign up for a short term. But the only one that we've heard confirmed so far is Kieran Lee.
Yeah.
Great service.
Though that's not been, I guess maybe they haven't done that because there's no official confirmation per se, right?
Well, maybe. Do you think it's a sort of informal handshake agreement to play another couple of games for you?
I think so, because there's not been an official announcement. Because I think the club probably wants to do all of them at once. You'd imagine that would be the case, right?
Oh, maybe.
I know, like Hull did that actually. So actually, Hull have had some pretty big kind of fallout characters, including Jackson Irvine, the Australian box-to-box midfielder, previously a sensation at Burton Albion, and maybe not quite pulling up trees at Hull City, but however, probably a player we might like, maybe. Who knows?
Maybe I would be interested. I'd be in the market for Jackson Irvine if that was something that was in the realms of possibility for us.
We've talked about, as Rich has got going, the chance, which will soon catch a wildfire across the cardboard cutouts in the crowd. More on that later. Baz Bannon, Kieran Lee, not as good a pairing as they seem to be, but maybe to the tune of the Skype ringtone. But also, maybe we could do with Luongo and Irvin, and that could be a bit of a double Tim Tam slam, maybe.
Oh, which in the sunlit uplands of post-Brexit Britain, we have been promised by the Prime Minister reasonably priced access to Tim Tams. I think I can hear you getting on a plane back to the UK, Luke.
I'm sorry. I was just firing up the old Google Flights as we speak.
Oh, what a ludicrous thing to have seen in real life. The Prime Minister holding up a box of Tim Tams. This might be controversial, and apologies to, I think we've got maybe one or two listeners in Australia. So my deepest and humblest apologies, but I think a Tim Tam is a penguin with airs and graces.
Well, apparently we're really straying away from the news of Wednesday news. We'll come back to that, folks. Don't you worry. But however, actually, the news is, I think, or the previous thing I heard was that basically the guy who created the Tim Tam had a penguin and said, "This is good. I can make it better." And it pains me to admit this, but a Tim Tam is actually better than a penguin.
It is better than a penguin, but so much better that I would give up freedom of movement across the whole of Europe. I don't know.
Well, that's just $1 million question. So anyway, player contracts.
Anyway.
There was some rumblings from Alan Nixon that actually they were initially keen of having everybody, but then they're not keen. So I'm not entirely sure fully what's kind of going on.
It was hard to read from my perspective that whether it was him saying we were kind of going to blanket offer all the players we had extensions, not just for this short period, but just to kind of stay with us longer term, and that decision had changed. But that would feel like a kind of desperate. That feels like we're definitely going to end up in an embargo, or they're expecting us to end up in an embargo if we're kind of clinging to every player under our possession.
Right, which probably maybe explains the Pelopessi contract extension a bit better. Maybe that's in a bit of a better light. Maybe, I don't know. That's an interesting point. Anyway, I think the interesting thing with that is. Monk has also said that basically all of the loan players have been verbally agreed they want to stay on, but basically there's still the ratifications to had.
Okay.
I guess the interesting thing we find with that is Windass is injured. Windass has an injury, so they're going to kind of assess that next week. But I think so I'm not sure regarding the terms of loan, but in terms of contractuals, maybe for the players who are actually at the club, the deadline seems to be the 23rd, is what I'm hearing.
Okay.
So that's Tuesday. So yeah, it's just such a strange situation. I mean, there's a difficult thing with, I would naturally think that, more on Stephen Fletcher later when we look at the game, but I was naturally thinking about, if Fletcher would be gone. And to a certain degree, and maybe this is only just with Fletcher, you can think this with a few players, but it'd really be nice to see them complete So and also for the sake of Fletcher, he's on a career best, like league goal best. It'd be nice to see him better that to some tune. So I don't know, and I would naturally think that it's going to be a little bit more money for a player to play for another month at least.
It is just those. I think Fletcher is the one that you kind of, it's the clearest picture of the dilemma that this situation puts someone in, because yes, Stephen Fletcher could play another, is it 5 games, something like that? Mm-hmm. And there'd be a bit of extra pay for that, but if there's the potential for him to sign a big deal with a lower league Premier League team or a top of the tree Championship team, why he shouldn't take the risk? It's daft to take the risk, because you could have a day where you spend 7 minutes on the pitch and you come off injured.
The fun thing with this, we've got no kind of insight. Everything is incredibly short-termism. We've got no view about how long how much longer, what semblance of football is going to be like next season, and what football is going to even happen.
Well, that was the other thing that Nixon sort of another thing he talked about was that Fox and Fletcher might be offered deals by us that are not quite as good as they're on, but might be better than they've been offered elsewhere.
Yes.
And that, for players, that might be an unfortunate thing, because everybody, as you say, we're in a strange limbo. The whole of the football world is in that limbo. And unfortunately, I've sort of seen people talking about entertainment acts and things like that. If this was going to be your breakout year and then it's been completely sort of taken from under you. But it might be unfortunate for Fletcher and Fox that they kind of have, both in their ways, had breakout years. Fletcher has shown, and he sort of rolled back the years in terms of his performances, put in a career best, and could have done, on another, outside of this weird situation, could have done a sort of Hal Robson-Kanu sort of gamble on himself that pays off big time. Mm-hmm. But if the backside has fallen out of the football market in a sense, it just might be dreadful timing for him, and he might have to just take what's there for him.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it would definitely be. I think this I feel like Fletcher's situation is a little bit different from the much talked about. The talisman of short-term contracts in this COVID age, Lyle Taylor. I think he's in a bit of a different. I would like to think he's in a bit different situation, but maybe I'm also being biased and also having a different bent on that purely because I'm a big Wednesday fan and he's a Wednesday player. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so contracts are still going on. We believe discussions are taking place. We're in that situation right now where news is so tight and so spare, and I feel like I'm basically within this realm. I'm basically doing the same thing that a journalist like Dom Howson would do, which is basically I'm using a lot of words to basically say I don't know.
Yes. What you haven't resorted to is clickbait headlines. Wednesday fans, this is the news you want to hear about Fletcher. Is it? I read it. It wasn't.
Big deal for Wednesday Star.
Yes.
Oh, we've agreed a youth contract with some fringe youth player, basically.
Shall we mosey on into the match?
Let's do that. I don't think. Oh, actually, there is a little bit more of a news.
Okay.
I'm curious, and maybe this might bridge the two. Little segue. Our very own James Alconnor, different gravy mascot, who we never got named, and then I basically went, "Can we call him James Alconnor?" And Rich went, "Sure, that seems fine." He was purchased for printouts in the crowd.
Yes.
Have we seen him in the crowd? Because I have not.
Oh yeah, he was under the N, top row. I was trying to grab a picture. I might go back if I can watch it back on iFollow. I'll be able to pause.
Yes.
But he was looking splendid, just off the halfway line. He's got a good view for himself. Yeah, we were able to sort of rob our pennies together from our meager merch sales and purchase a fan in the stand that happened to be James Alconnor.
Were we anywhere near shitting distance to the guy, the Middlesbrough fan?
The Middlesbrough fan?
There was a person wearing a Middlesbrough shirt.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you see I think it was Lincoln City, where it was like the same kid 4 or 5 times?
No, I did not. That's fantastic.
Yeah, they were advertising the service, and it was the same lad with different haircuts.
Excellent.
Again and again.
So less Children of the Damned, but more Children of the Devilish Imps.
Exactly.
Perhaps. That's and obviously big shout out to, as everyone else is doing, is it Barney who's the who's the old Yaman Labrador. Yaman dog.
Yes.
Wednesday in dog form.
Yeah, excellent stuff.
Heartbreakingly not right next to David Blunkett.
No.
It's a bit of a shame, but anyway. Yeah.
So well, for all the sort of, umming and ahhing and hewing and moaning and stuff that we've done in the interim, it was hard not to get excited that there was football on the cards. I woke up earlier and with a bit of a spring in my step. Did you have the same sort of experience? I mean, I know it's very early for you anyways.
I got up, I set the alarm for a weekend. How about that? I didn't even do that on Friday, and I got up late and rushed myself to a dental appointment, which was top fun, as you imagine. And yeah, and then I did what all great Wednesdayites this side of the world do, and that's getting a wrestling match with I Follow.
Well, I believe that was a worldwide bit of fun today. I didn't get on till about the 15th minute, I think.
Same here as well, and actually had to watch the entirety of it on my iPhone.
Lovely. And it was herky-jerky at times. Did you have that too?
No, it was the stream was pretty good for me, I'm going to be honest. I put my head down the pillow and I go straight to sleep, Rich.
You set the alarm and you go, not today, alarm. It's Saturday. Good one, alarm.
Oh, well, can we talk about this lineup? Because I think that's, Luke loves lineups. And this was a bit of a bananas one, wasn't it?
It was. So the first, straight away, Wildsmith starting was a bit of a surprise.
Top of the pops, top 40 Joe.
Top 40 Joe. And then a back three with wing backs.
Yes, because I had the thing initially of looking and seeing. So the first name, obviously, in terms of this, because everything's sorted by the squad numbers. We've got Liam Palmer. We've got LP at number 2. And, right behind the number 1 with the bullets, Joe Wildsmith. Yeah. What even is Joe Wildsmith's number?
28.
28. Interesting. So then I was like, oh, Liam Palmer plays right back, which is what I'm usually thinking. So I was scouring the team sheet for a left back near the end. And that's when I wasn't finding one. And that's the point where I also saw Fox on the bench. I thought Fletcher would probably be on the bench because I heard he was had a bit of an injury niggle kind of midweek.
Yes.
So that wasn't too surprising. It's nice to see Rhodes back.
Well, it was interesting to see him starting. So, yeah, right next to Palmer in the lineup would have been Kieran Lee and Jordan Rhodes, who aren't necessarily guaranteed starters normally.
No. And then initially I had the whole point thinking we were doing a 4-3-3. And then I figured out, actually, no, it was, like you said, it's the 3-5-2 with Murphy and Harris as wingbacks. And
I would say, by and large, it seemed to work pretty well. The wing-back element, at least.
I thought it was largely okay. I think on paper, I agree with it very well. I think there's some questions over the centre-back credentials of Palmer. But then, he is someone who's a fair degree of, versatility. So I've kind of said it's unnatural, but not completely dysfunctional. And I think the good word is unorthodox.
Yes, I think that can work. We've seen that occasionally, that actually a fullback in that 3 can work out all right, because the other 2 play like a traditional pairing, and then you've got a third person to either sort of do cover in behind or kind of lead the line and try and break things up a bit further forward. So he seemed to sort of grow into that role. There was some little cameos from both Burner and Palmer further up the pitch as the game wore on. I think probably the highlight of the game was Burner in the second half. There was a moment where he was all the way up on the left wing and sort of dropped a shoulder and then peeled a pass with the outside of his left foot to the other flank. It was gorgeous. It's a sight to behold. So Gary Monk has been watching his overlapping centre back videos, and he was clearly inspired by the Wild Away.
Okay, I don't know how to respond to that one. Anyway, moving on. But yeah, I liked it. I wondered if I was thinking how much I would have liked Rhodes Fletcher, but it's probably a fitness issue. I'm a little bit unsure about seeing Wickham start, but I don't know. It's been a long time. He's probably at the base level. I guess the interesting thing now is this is a reset across all of football, effectively. And bar any injuries that kind of come up, everybody's at the base level of fitness, which this is really much like the kind of feel and vibe of the game. It's very much preseason friendly in terms of fitness, right?
Yes, yeah. So that tends to boil down to who's the fittest player. So you kind of pick the guys that you're fairly sure can give you over an hour of work. That tends to be how the team picks itself to an extent. It was interesting. It was interesting seeing. So Wickham has tended to start more often than not since he came. I think that's fair to
Sure,
say.
but I think we also saw and wondered about whether. I mean, the interesting thing of that is during that period, that was a point where we had a real embarrassment of centre forwards, but
Yes.
they're all very much out of form and all very
Yes.
much misfiring. So it felt a lot like we were really clinging to the hope of the fact that he is a big signing. He's a big Premier League signing, effectively, and we're really hoping to get so much juice out of this loan deal against these big wages. But also, like, we're really desperate for him to do well all round, and you don't know whether then there's any kind of commitments that he needs to play in the kind of loan agreement, as that stuff. It just felt like we were grasping and clinging on to, the hope of him doing well, basically. Like, we need him to do well.
I think he's largely done all right for us. I thought, particularly sort of by the time we got to kind of the Barnsley game, he seemed to be finding his feet again and finding his fitness. And I thought today he looked pretty useful. I think he wasn't given, clearly him and Rhodes were given different jobs to do. And Rhodes has the discipline to stick to that task, which means he's not involved in a huge amount of the game. And Wickham was coming deep and trying to sort of be the link, the kind of Hooper-esque link between the midfield that was generally quite deep and then giving us that foothold to keep moving forward. And I thought he did that quite usefully a few times.
Sure. Do you think, though, for a shadow striker, he was a bit more in the shadows, though?
He was in the shadows, and I think he sacrificed a lot of himself for the team because he was quite often the one putting the ball in. It was actually quite a Fletcher-ish performance in some ways. The Fletcher of old, not particularly the Fletcher of this year, but doing a lot of hard work outside of the box, but kind of you wish he was the guy that was in the box. He put in 2 or 3.
I guess that's kind of the problem. Is one of those is going to take the limelight, and I think it's the different mentality that you think you typically don't want to see Rhodes in the limelight. You kind of want both in the limelight, really.
Yeah, that would be nice.
But I get the point, though. I get the point that you need it as part of that kind of strike partnership. You need someone to do some jobs and someone to do the other, effectively.
Yes. So do we want to kind of... to be honest, my notes taking was a little bit haphazard due to aforementioned I follow issues. I sort of picked up on Burner on the overlap. Rhodes had a couple of decent chances towards the end of the first half. I think by and large we looked the better team in that first half. We pretty much controlled Forest. They didn't get a huge amount going forward. And they didn't really seem to come alive until very much the end of that half. So I thought it was for all the form beforehand and the fact this is a bit pre-season-y, I thought we kind of had the better of that first 45 minutes. Did you?
I would agree, yeah. And I not to kind of spoilers, but I would say that's probably that theme runs throughout the game. I would say. Yeah. We were the more dominant and sharper of the sides. I would argue that it was a bit of a tight affair. It wasn't like it was, it was a bit of a reverse of that, obviously, first match against Forest at their place that we covered on the second time in last week's episode, where, we were absolutely very dominant and, all that jazz.
I thought it would have happened again. Just when that ball kind of like fell into... Well, no, it was a really great pass, the kind of reverse pass into Rhodes around sort of 3 minutes or so. Yeah. And I just thought, wow, it's going to happen again. He's just popped up, but he kind of let it roll past him, and the chance kind of got away. And he got the shot on target, but it was straight at the keeper, unfortunately. And he had another one like that towards the end of the half, but it was almost, he almost kind of shook up, brought back that same magic that he'd done previously. The other big sort of incident was Wickham's header down, where at first it looked just like a very simple save for the goalkeeper, but on reflection, it did hit the defender's arm. But it would have been really, really harsh to handball.
Yes, that was the one that I think I've actually marked and said, it would have been an exceptionally unfortunate penalty, but it did feel, it was weird because it kind of felt like it was prevented.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that probably in the Premier League with VAR, we would have got a penalty.
If someone would have been watching the cameras at that point.
Yeah. But it was, like on a technical basis, he absolutely used his hand. It absolutely stopped the ball travelling towards the goal. And that kind of the realism of, well, the goalkeeper was right behind it. It wasn't much of an effort. That doesn't seem to come into it particularly in terms of the way handballs are dealt with in the Premier League now with the VAR system. So, yeah, I mean, probably we would have had a penalty for that if we were in the league above, but we're not. So it was just sort of waved away. Luongo had a really nice dipping effort as well just after that. So we were kind of building ahead of steam. But Graben also missed a bit of a sitter header-wise. Apologies if I'm just sort of rattling through things. Do pull me up if you want to.
No, I think that's kind of fair for what I've kind of taken down. I felt that basically. I said, you can criticize this as a sentence, Rich. I said, Luongo with the $1 million ideas for club and financial ruin.
Nice.
With that shot. It was speculative. And also I enjoyed, Bannon and Lee, both seemingly on the driving range already by ploughing a couple of shots over the bar.
I thought it was the Rob on the commentary said Luongo's just trying to hit it as hard as he can there, but I thought it was quite an artful attempt at a bit of an awkward shot and angle. He was trying to loop it over the keeper. It just didn't quite work. I thought he looked like a really useful player to have around. He really drives things forward. He seems to sort of pop up all sorts of places. And in terms of the lockdown Buffon, pretty strong is the game of Luongo on the old the slightly overgrown hair front. Lovely little burst of curls on the top of his head. So we also had a drinks break in the first half.
Yeah, these cooling breaks, which, maybe it was quite funny because you said about the Americanization of the game, on the commentary that John Pearson was saying that he thought that football would get more Americanized and that you'd have 4 quarters. And, effectively you do have 4 quarters with that, really.
They do in college soccer or whatever, when they show it, they do have an ad break in the middle of the game, in the middle of each half, I think.
Right. So finally the joy of what basically they kind of want because there's not enough gaps for commercialization, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Within regular soccer. It's just not good enough for the, you can't go 2nd and 6 and then cut to remind people about some Guy Ritchie film and some Peanuts, maybe.
Yeah, and
I do want to say with televisation, I enjoyed the spare ball parapet.
Yes.
It was very Gladiators-esque. I expected Wolf to growl at Bannon from behind the corner flag. It was a bit Saturday Night ITV. And maybe playing in the heat is also the travelator at the end of the season? ?
Excellent. Yes. I wonder if, in light of all these things getting sort of cancelled in retrospect and pulled off Netflix, I suspect Gladiators was doing some of the naming principles. I suspect probably wouldn't stand up to the rigors of the modern.
Well, I think it's fine that there was a large black man named Shadow. I think that's perfectly fine. I don't see anything reason in that.
The most shocking one that sort of slipped by was obviously Spice Girls, wasn't it? Just to sort of complete this little meander, Yeah. The black one is called Scary Spice, and she's forced to rap despite the fact she has absolutely zero talent for it.
That's always the case. That's every boy and girl band. We'll have the black member of the group rap.
And JLS was 3 members that they forced to rap despite having no talent for it. They were also forced to sing and dance. It was quite a cruel career that they had, all told. Right. So that sort of takes us up to half time.
I also had a moment where I thought one of the fans in the crowd could throw it back for a throw-in, and then I remembered that then reality hit me. What was going on? Well,
did you see there was a point where the ball hit one of the cardboard cutouts? Fortunately or unfortunately, it wasn't James Alconnor. It was a bit further along the row. But somebody now has the job of going along and propping up the cardboard cutout if it gets bashed. Oh dear, which
I'd
would
like to
look
think
weird
that
on
if
a
one was
CV.
damaged, then like one of the players could sign it or give their warm up jacket, a bit similar to, I don't know. This is am I becoming Will Smith in I Am Legend?
I've never seen the film, but I hope you are.
Just getting anxiety to talk to a lady mannequin. Who knows? I mean, you could kiss it. It could turn into Kim Cattrall. Is it? It could be Hitch.
Yes. So we reach half time. No changes for either team at half time, which has been a bit of a feature in quite a few of the games. There's been half time changes, but not the case this time round. Forest kind of probably had their best period of the game to that point, sort of straight from the off. We looked a little bit, to use the old Wednesday adage, we looked a little bit like we forgot that there was a second half to play for a while. Did you feel that vibe as well? Or
I don't think I did.
No. They had a decent chance, I think. Was it Lolly had a chance at that stage? They didn't make much of it. It wasn't a huge amount of. It's a very minor swing on the pendulum. It wasn't. It wasn't. This wasn't end to end stuff. This was kind of like, they moved slightly closer to our goal. What I did think was back a little bit was I thought Murphy looked on the ball more like the guy from his early games for us, and less like the kind of powerhouse he'd been in his better games for us.
Mm-hmm.
He seemed to always want to take on his man, and that largely boiled down to kind of doing step overs until he walked into his man. And if he was lucky, he'd come away with the ball. If not, there'd be nothing. And there was a couple of times where it was quite frustrating that he just should have just put the ball in. He was played the ball into space.
I feel like maybe, do you think it's maybe kind of fair to say he was probably one of the weaker players today?
Possibly. I think certainly he didn't do as well as he should have with the chances he was presented. Because I think if you look at the things that worked well for us today, I think actually we did quite a good job of kind of drawing them into the middle and making them quite compact in the middle of their box, and then playing the ball out wide. Bannon played several sort of almost dangerous passes, but nice passes out to the wingers, and Luongo and Kieran Lee both contributed to that as well. But we didn't see a lot of quality from either side of them. Harris is very willing, but his approach to crossing the ball is kind of volume rather than settling on one piece of quality. It's like, I'll just knock it in and hope for the best. And quite a lot of his crosses went straight to the goalkeeper or went behind. So yeah, I think we were presented with lots of chances, and actually by and large that's how we did so well against them at their place, was we exploited them on the flanks. But we kind of made a lot of those same opportunities, but just didn't take them in the same way. Lightning didn't strike twice in the Rhodes side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So go on.
Well, I guess like one of the biggest things we can kind of look at is probably the 57th minute is the Wickham chance, right?
So I thought that was Rhodes, but it was Wickham.
It was Wickham, right? Yes.
Hit the post.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just before that, we'd had a nice move where Murphy had kind of run into his defender and then somehow managed to save a sort of pullback out of it. And Kieran Lee tried a clever little sort of chippy dinky thing, which didn't work, but it was a nice move.
Which I was surprised. I think Lee did exceptionally well with that in that circumstance. Yeah. And I will be honest, that was out of play. That was pretty clearly out of play. I thought it was.
It was very close. I wouldn't be surprised. But that was nice. It was a sign of us kind of turning the tide a little bit. And then so we hit the post, and then that Kieran Lee shot.
Do you think he could have done better in that situation? No.
He managed to find a Forest player in a goal that was bereft of almost any defence.
Don't hit the Forest player, don't hit the Forest player, I've hit the Forest player.
Yeah.
A little bit. I think he was a little bit caught unawares with, I'm not sure if he's quite the sharpest person in that situation. I think given a bit more time, I think he's a player who can be very composed with his finishing. But I think that it was a bit quick for him.
It was just, I think the keeper was a good foot behind the line, so it would have been hard for him to save almost anything that was on target. And I think the defender did a really good job to get his foot to it, but it's just a bit frustrating. It's just one of those, if you really just want to smash it into the roof of the net because nobody can get to that. And he's placed it, but amazingly sort of placed it exactly where the defender's foot was. You're right. It's sort of come straight at him, and he's done what he could with it. It's just a bit frustrating because it was a great chance, and obviously that would have been a great time to score as well. And before that, I think it was a bit of a sitter, the header. I think that should have been scored as well, because the keeper had absolutely sold himself down the river, and anything on target is in.
But it's a tight angle, though, right? And I mean, I would argue that it's a very small window to get that ball in at the near post. That'd be my take on the thing.
But he doesn't need to get it at the near post.
But he's also near the near post as well. He's like getting that back across in that situation is difficult. Personally,
I think it's one of those where it's too. He's almost hit it too well, because if he connects any less with it, or if it kind of scuffs off his forehead, it goes in, because the keeper has put himself in a situation a bit like Westwood did a few times early in the season, where he's wholly committed, got nowhere near it, and effectively anything on target is a goal. I'm being a little harsh, but that was a great opportunity, and both of them put together, it's a real shame we didn't score either of them. I think on the balance of probability, we should be scoring but one of those two chances. So it's a shame to not come away with the situation.
I think we're just, I don't know. It was unfortunate.
Okay. I sort of thought it was almost a free header for Wickham, and probably should be hitting the target with it. Anyway.
I thought it was interesting because I think he'd have to go back across the defender. Yeah, maybe he could have done better with like aiming that in the right direction. Maybe that was to kind of bow to your idea and perspective on that.
It's not. I'm not saying it's an easy chance. I think Fletcher would score it this season. Fletcher would have scored it
this season. Fletcher. Well, that's definitely. But Fletcher's always adept at very difficult-looking headers, though, isn't he?
He is. Yeah. 64th minute was when Burner did his beautiful drop the shoulder pass across the field to Murphy. But things we got up that head of steam. We had that really good chance, but things kind of died down again at that stage, didn't they? And I believe that's when they made their changes, their first couple of changes. Yeah, so 62nd minute, they made a couple of changes and pretty much went to 4-4-2 at that stage.
So I know they were saying that, but what effectively were they playing before? Were they playing just like a one up top? Is that the kind of mentality they were doing before?
Yeah, so they had 5 in midfield with like to be honest, when you look at the average positions, it was quite close to a 4-4-2 because Lolly was so far forward a lot of the time. But technically the formation they were playing was 4-2-3-1, and then they went for a solidly having two up front. And so then, a few kind of tame minutes went past, and Monk decided we should sort of match them up and go 4-4-2 ourselves.
Well,
Came off, and Murphy came off, and we brought on Odebajo and Stephen Fletcher. And we didn't quite find our feet in the new positions by the time Forest had pretty much their only good chance of the game, and the one that they scored. Do you think that's fair? It's just so close together. We made changes, and there was a water break as well, wasn't there?
The only thing I think we missed from that, actually, in terms of chronologically, was I thought it was a big let off the chance where Iorfa dropped a clanger, lost the ball. They put way too much pace on it across for Graben, and he couldn't quite get there.
You're right.
That was about the 59th minute, so just about the hour in the game, and that was it. But I mean, outside of that, they didn't really have any great clear chances, Forest.
I thought Graben should have done better with his one before half time. I thought it was a free header, and he didn't get any power on it, and he just kind of knocked it back to Wildsmith.
Well, I also thought just before that, I think it was the 43rd minute, the thing I didn't mention was the Joe Lolly had a free kick, which I thought we were very lucky he spooned it over because it was a really, really good position. And it was a completely needless free kick to give away as well.
Yeah, I thought it was a harsh decision to give it.
I don't know who gave it away. Was it Luongo?
It was Kieran Lee.
It was Kieran Lee, right.
Yeah, but I sort of thought it was they both tried to hip check each other and both ended up on the floor.
I could see how you could probably say that, to be honest with you. just thought it was. It felt like one of those situations where if you need to make the challenge to risk giving away a free kick, it's not worth doing in that situation.
I know what you mean.
One of those. I mean,
the risks are so much higher.
It's one of those you don't want to make. You don't want to be in that situation, so just don't make the challenge.
And unfortunately, as we've has been a recurring theme, an all too familiar thing for our midfielders to do, giving away that sort of free kick in a action.
Completely, it's a recurrent stat for Sheffield Wednesday this season.
Yeah. No, I thought sort of arguably, because jumping ahead a little bit, Graben also had a chance that just dropped to him in the box that he did pretty poorly with. He could have had a hat-trick today on if they played slightly differently in different situations, because he had some decent chances, probably better chances than our strikers were presented with at any stage, and didn't really test us at all. From any of them.
So I mean, I guess the interesting thing was you talked about the fact we made those changes on the 68th minute as a double substitution with, Rose coming off for Fletcher, Murphy coming off for Adebayo. I thought it was going to be we were going to keep sticking with the 3-5-2 and seeing Adebayo being that wing back. Because, I mean, he is a player who can do that. He is a player who's not... I think he's got to play with the engine to get forward. I'm not entirely sure, as much as I feel like I'm doing a bunch of defending for Moses Adebayo this season. I do believe in him as a player, effectively. I don't know how good he is at getting forward. I'm not sure what the end product quite is for him, but he's definitely a player with that engine and definitely a player who can get up and down that wing and defend and attack and then do the midfield piece as well. So I thought we were still doing a 3-5-2.
No, because Palmer played right back and Adebayo played right wing, and Harris then sort of switched to left back weirdly. It wasn't. I mean, it's not huge distinctions, I think, between the two systems, because you want those guys forward. But yeah, the way it worked from that point on was different.
But I thought that was mainly kind of endemic of, and may also be. I thought this would be something that you would pick up on, actually, and. Sorry, that sounds like I've just completely called you out there, Rich. No, I saw that on Twitter. Peter Lohman was talking about the goal, and he was saying how thought it was a defensive frailty in a 3-5-2, which kind of makes sense. But I mean, we are very susceptible on the wings anyway, I would say.
Do you know, we were because we were in a transition at that stage. So
sure.
I think it's weird because we have sort of ended up not having a left back. So Palmer came across and played more in behind Adebayo, but on the left it was sort of all left to Harris still, because we relied on him an awful lot going forward, and there's nobody in that midfield that really naturally has any ability playing a wing. They don't tend to stick to it. They don't have the discipline for it. No, I suppose it is tricky. It's hard to know really what we ended up in. And again, how many times this season have we seen players scratching their heads and having conversations after?
Yes, of who was there, who should have been watching this play.
And
yes.
What the substitution was, we kind of matched them, but didn't really. It caused enough confusion. It also doesn't help. And a dreadful set piece from Barry Bannon. So Barry Bannon passed it to their goalkeeper, and their goalkeeper got it out of his hands pretty quickly, and they caught us on the break. Lolly got past Harris very easily.
There was a big, long kind of punt for Lolly too. I mean, I think really when you look at it, for a team like Forest, who I think were the worst off in terms of chances of this game, I think it was a real perfect storm. The fact that basically we made that substitution, we dropped our concentration. As you said, I don't remember it too much, but the bad free kick from Bannon, they capitalized, they counter-attack very quickly. Lolly is a player with a lot of pace and a lot of danger, and it looked like he was offside, but I think it's purely just his pace that actually just kind of did us.
He took a very good first touch, but I think I did put down offside ? Because I never. The best angle for it was probably the one that was shown live, and they didn't really seem to show that angle again to give us a proper view. Everything afterwards was too zoomed in to give you a full view. But I think that Iorfa and Burner didn't get across, didn't react quick enough. And I thought Wildsmith was really slow off his line and seemed to kind of open up a huge amount of the goal for him to put the ball into. Considering what he wants to do in that situation, Lolly, I don't think we made it hard enough. Despite after the initial error, we didn't do a good enough job kind of trying to put some barriers in his way.
Do you think Wildsmith could have closed down that angle a lot better?
I thought he was too worried about his near post, and he gave him the whole goal to aim for, and he didn't react quick enough to cover the whole goal. Like, I suppose you're always making a gamble in that situation. It's almost like a penalty shootout-esque gamble, but he's gone to cover his near post and bet on himself probably to react quick enough to block anything else. But Lolly's hit it too well for him to react to it. So yeah, that was disappointing because, as we touched on, we've probably been the better team up to that stage. We definitely had the better chances, and so we'd made our first changes. It was also, there was the water break. We made the changes with the water break. So Wednesday, this is obviously, there's a lot of confirmation bias involved in this, but I do feel we tend to react worst to every break in play. You know, if it's a long injury or there's a fan on the pitch or whatever, there's a pigeon on the pitch.
Which is funny because, you know, we feel like a lot of teams naturally do that to us. You know, it's like the teams try to break play up and frustrate us, and it seems to largely work. Yeah,
definitely. We can be got at in that way. So this is where it all started to feel quite pre-season-y because we made another 2 changes. Did Fletcher touch the ball? He was on the pitch for 6 minutes.
And I feel like there must have been 2 or 3 minutes. I think I remember very early on seeing a little bit of him looking like he was shonkily walking around, like something had happened.
Odebajo picked up his yellow card, and somehow in the same incident, Fletcher was limping. But it wasn't, Odebajo was nowhere near him. He was like 6 feet from that bit of play, but he was prominently in shot as Odebajo got his yellow card, limping to the sideline.
Because it's staggering how quickly he got injured after being on. It's almost like he was injured before he came on the pitch. But I know that wasn't the case. But I'm just like,
it's a strange one, isn't it?
Remember anything that happened, any incident, any foul, any moment of overexertion. It was a bit like me if I just go out for a walk during these periods because I'm largely just desk bound all the time. I'd probably look a bit like Stephen Fletcher did there. So it was very strange because how he was injured he was on the pitch for 6 minutes before Alessio Da Cruz, as you like to put him, came on. So that was 6 minutes. But effectively, he's been injured for more minutes than he was on the pitch.
Well, he was off the pitch talking to, basically from that incident at 71 minutes. He didn't get back on the pitch after that. He limped off. Yeah. So he was actively on the pitch for 2.5, 3 minutes. What a great sub.
I know. And actually, prior to that, I know we had the Wickham header, but I actually thought Rhodes was probably slightly better in terms of roles. I thought it was a little bit harsh to see Rhodes come off, I'll be honest. Oh, the classic Rich inhale and... I respectfully disagree. So,
here's the thing: judged against the person and being of the name Jordan Rhodes that has pulled on a blue and white shirt for Sheffield Wednesday for nearly three years or whatever,
and even one that's even pulled on the numerous away shirts that we've pulled as well.
Yeah, on occasions he has won the reverse strip.
Even when he scored a brace against Bolton in the.
Yes. So judged against that yardstick, a very fine performance.
Yes.
Did a bit of stuff. Was there, moved the ball forward, challenged at times. Judged against other footballers on the pitch, I thought he did almost nothing apart from miss. Not miss, but not really make anything of his chance and then be offside. There was one bit where he kind of knocked it into the channel and then played it back. That was good. I do remember that happening. But by and large, it was a lot of being under aerial challenges and...
Sure.
So...
Maybe still praise it. Maybe damning praise. Still a top 10 Jordan Rhodes Sheffield Wednesday performance, though, right?
Quite possibly. Yeah.
Possibly in at number 8.
I thought he did a job. It is probably similar to, as we were talking last week, probably similar to the job that he did when he came on in the the Rhodes fracking game. Similar sort of job. He's making sure they keep honest. He's being very disciplined about the role he's playing. And that means that the defence can't let up because he's always looking to move in behind and present an option. And that is a vital thing to do. And it does require him to probably remove himself, to not be actively involved in a lot of build-up play. So I've got no qualms. I thought he did all right. I wasn't saying, my goodness, how can you take Rhodes off?
Sure. I felt he was the slightly more unfortunate one.
Well, quite possibly.
But I guess interesting then, I mean, this is the problem right now, especially the contract situation. Not to go back to this too much. One thing I wanted to say was, there's it's a really weird comparison this, but you imagine like an old person saying from a different time being, if she's good enough to sleep with, she's good enough to marry. I feel like, unfortunately, right now, we very much need the opposite of that, because we need as many bodies as we do for the end of the run-in, because players, you got to be here for a good time, not a long time right now.
Yeah.
And all these players were racking up injuries. So Nuyu wasn't involved. I'm not sure where Nuyu was. In which now we've now got a bench where we have two more players. There's no Forestieri apparently. So at the aftermatch, post-match, I was just scanning quickly while we were chatting, and basically Monk said he's behind the other players. So right. Very interesting situation now that we may not see Forestieri in the Wednesday shirt again. Possibly. We might not see Nuyu in a Wednesday shirt again. It's a situation. There's no Winall. Winall is injured. That's another bit of mini news.
No Urugide, having got his new deal.
Sure, but if I'd really see that. So, yeah, we had Fox, Pelopessi, Fletcher, Lees, Reach, Odebajo, Dawson, Hunt, and De Cruz on the bench. And I guess that feels like a pretty fair kind of subs lineup. But still, the funny thing now, we're looking at this and thinking, even for the mentality of a preseason friendly, we still got players who haven't got minutes, who haven't been involved. And when you're looking at that, you're like, well, we've got Fletcher, and that's it for recognised out-and-out strikers. I was wondering when Reach was coming on, I wonder if he was going to come on for Fletcher and he would play up front. I was surprised to see De Cruz up front.
Well, he is a striker come winger, isn't he?
I guess so. He's more of the he's a bit more Pro Evolution Soccer second striker, isn't he?
I suppose. I thought so. In terms of positives, I thought Reach and De Cruz really looked right up for it and looked good when they came on.
And I thought, you're also happy to see Reach come back into his centrist role.
Centrist role, yeah. He's had dalliances on both.
I quite enjoyed it. I mean, that was probably maybe some of the better, milder kind of peanuts in the turd of Jos Luhukay's frame was Adam Reach in the middle of the park. I thought he was okay. I liked the idea of he's got a touch of pace to him. He's got a ton of industry.
I think he's quick. I think Reach is quick.
Adam Legsy, Burrow legs, Adam Reach.
See, ironically, if the game panned out exactly the same and you swapped Harris for Reach, I think we would have absolutely torn them apart today. Because I think what we needed was a bit of quality in key moments, and I think Reach would have probably been more likely to deliver that. And I thought De Cruz actually delivered some real quality once he came on. Obviously for the goal, but a couple of balls before that he really whipped them in.
Interesting as well, being that we've got a whole backstory about left back Adam Reach.
Left back Adam Reach, yeah.
And wing back Adam Reach as well. So maybe historically on paper, we'd have that to look at. But then, do you think he's that player? Historically, maybe not. That's the problem. But maybe he's more of a better fit than either Harris or Murphy, who did well. But
I think they both I think defensively they both did a really good job. Harris did an absolutely incredible tackle towards the end of the first half. He absolutely smashed Lolly in the box and came away with the ball. I thought actually defensively I was quite surprised at how well, particularly Harris did. Obviously, there was the mistake for the goal, but it's one of those things where you just cannot afford. It's always hard for the team when you are comfortable in an attack sort of footing and then you give possession away tamely. When the midfielder looks at all of his options and then rolls it to the guy in front of him, when, in this case, Bannon passes it into the hands of the goalkeeper, it's always difficult to recover from that. And Harris obviously got caught out in the midst of that. But outside of that, I did think he did a pretty good job. I wouldn't be upset if we try playing this 3-5-2 again in the next game.
I think we made a decent fist of it, excuse me.
Yeah.
And I think also, I think that was the thing. Monk was just saying in his post-match, saying that, it was quick and the players did a good job of trying it. Maybe that's an interesting thing. Maybe you can kind of think about that with we're trying new ideas very quickly, and it seems to have a bit of impetus with the squad. A little bit similar to how you can think in kind of Monk's introduction away at Huddersfield.
Yes. Yeah.
The thing I wanted to point out, just looking through my kind of chronological notes, we're kind of ambling through this second half after not really against the run of play, but maybe a little bit unfortunate that it felt undeserved that Forest took the lead.
Yeah.
Do you find it interesting that they got quite dirty after that? I found
they did. Their team got bigger and dirtier.
It was interesting. It was really interesting, and then I was almost surprised. I mean, I'm also watching this as a Wednesday fan and biased and getting a bit emotional, but I was wondering whether a red card was coming at one point. There
was a bubbling kind of heat to things, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was very strange.
Because I was surprised that I can't remember which player it would have been for them, possibly Diakabi, but one of them made a horrible tackle on Odebajo. One of those where they leave their studs up late after the ball's kind of gone. And I was really surprised he didn't get a card for it. I don't think the ref even spoke to him afterwards. And that is sort of almost guaranteed yellow card territory. And that seemed to be the beginning of a kind of heightening of things. They hammered into a few more tackles, and that quite often happens if you get away with one. That seems to be like, oh well, I'll get in while the going's good, and and do the same thing. So we made our Reach had a decent-ish chance. He had a chance with his right foot. I'm trying to think how that fell, which side of Hunt's introduction that was, but I suppose it doesn't matter a huge amount.
Hunt came on the 83rd minute for Luongo, if that helps you at all. I don't know if you had any notes about. I genuinely couldn't really remember much. Maybe I was just getting to that point of just watching Wednesday and being in a situation and just kind of being resigned to, seeing a loss, and this was just exactly what I didn't want would happen.
It did start to feel like we've been here before. Them being dirty, but also falling over more and time wasting. We looked pretty devoid of ideas. We didn't seem to have much momentum. And I think, to be fair to young Alex Hunt, he was part of turning the tide. So he came on for Massimo Luongo, and he just seemed to buy himself a bit more time to pick out passes. And we'd got very pedestrian. We'd got very sideways passing, which can happen. I mean, Bannon, for all of his, the wonderful parts to his game, one, his set pieces and shooting can leave a lot to be desired, and two, he can sometimes get a bit stuck in a rut of sort of doing nice little sideways passing, but not progressing us at all. But it's a nice, quick it's a very Barcelona-y type of pass that he plays in those situations. Comes and takes it off one centre-back, fizzes it to the other centre-back, and kind of wanders away. And we've not gained anything from it. It's not moved us forward. And Hunt played a few better passes, kind of picked out the winger rather than just rolling it to the full-back. A bit more risky in the passing, but he made sure it went to the man, and there was a good weight of ball. I'd really liked his little cameo again.
This was a shame because I felt like his introduction was at such a point where I felt so kind of devoid of hope and thinking this is what it is. I didn't really look out a great deal for Hunt. I think I remember seeing one or two bits and thinking that was okay, but I might actually go back and watch the rest of his kind of cameo appearance after this, because I'd like to see. I'm a big fan of Alex Hunt. I'm really becoming a big fan of Alex Hunt, and I'm beginning to think that we definitely need to see a lot more of him next season and the end of this season as well.
There looks to be some real potential there, I've got to say. It's you don't want to kind of put too much pressure on his shoulders, but I thought his He had one little moment in his first sort of substitute appearance this season. Was that against Huddersfield or was it Leeds? He didn't have.
I can't remember. It was the one against Man City was pretty great.
Then the one against Man City was really mouth-watering almost, and it's a shame that in all of the dreadful things that this virus and response is responsible for, one of the additional things, definitely not top of the list. But one of the things we've missed out on is potentially him capitalizing on that momentum which he could have built from. But again, I thought he looked bright. He seems to have a bit of confidence in himself. And all this talk about him potentially being a mentee of Barry Bannon's, it's got to go well for his future, really. And as you say, I hope we don't have to wait till next season. I hope we get a few moments of him. I'd certainly rather see him come on over, instead of Joey Pelopessi if we're in those situations. It's horses for courses.
Well, I feel like we're given the opportunity and having the possibility of more of a chance of something. I think you're the possibility of looking to add something to a game rather than Pelopessi's looking to not make the game worse. It kind of shut the door, yeah. Yeah. It's kind of shut all the windows in the head. Larry Grayson.
Shut that door.
I, for some reason, was thinking of Larry Hagman. I'm like, I don't know what Dallas is going to do with this. Then maybe it's I Dream a Genie. I don't know. Anyway.
Right.
Well, I'm on a stupid note. Did you enjoy seeing John Bostock come on?
Yes.
And did you? I also enjoyed the shot where it kind of cut and he was walking past Barry Bannon, and it looked like Barron was looking and going, "Is that John Bostock?" Is that like people spotting a minor celebrity on the street?
Yeah,
just happening.
Apparently, he's rebuilt his career in Belgium.
I heard about this. Yeah,
this is what they said on the commentary. So so we had a corner that was fizzed in, probably the best delivery from a set piece all game, and it was De Cruz. Interesting that it took it. They didn't quite clear that properly, so we had another good ball fizzed in by De Cruz, and that we managed to get another corner, and this time he put it right on Wickham's head, and Wickham sort of nonchalantly nodded it home. We deserved something out of the game. It was relief. It wasn't one of those draws that felt like a win to me. It was relief that we'd at least got some reward for having played much better than.
Well, it's that also that mentality of ending something on a high note. It makes you think a lot better about the whole procedure.
Yes.
There's something to do with the psychology of like why, it's so much better for films have happy endings. It makes you feel better about the whole procedure, the whole ordeal that you sat through. But I mean, what a lovely cross from the Cruz.
Yeah.
And then I just loved the fact that, like, I think I've definitely seen weaker players and weaker strikers be in that situation that Wickham would do. And then what all they would do effectively is they'd back into the player and get into a wrestling match with the defender and try and limplessly win a penalty. But the fact that he had the power and just the composure he made it look effortless. Just to hold that player back and to stand his ground and then just guide in a lovely header. It was fantastic. It was great to see. It was great to see that kind of pillar of strength of Connor Wickham back, because I think we've seen a lot. Definitely, we were wondering about whether he's a player who's maybe physically crumbled a bit over his injuries and over the years.
Yes,
especially considering that young player who came through, who looked like he had like a little bit of everything in the bag.
Absolutely, he doesn't seem to have some of that explosion, but it's nice to know that he does have that kind of core strength, which is he put to absolutely brilliant use for the goal. And it was just one of those where it was a great, I celebrated probably enough to frighten neighbours and things like that. It was a huge relief to get the goal, but it came with the frustration that if only we'd kind of got it maybe 5 minutes earlier, we probably would have had a good go at winning the game.
It almost looked like we were going to go and get the winner.
Yeah,
after that,
we
had the momentum, and then we just looked so much larger after the goal. A little bit similar to Forest, but we didn't turn into assholes about it.
I thought De Cruz. It really seemed to be a bit of a wait for him. I think being involved in something positive as well, because he had a couple of really nice little touches after that.
Well, De Cruz almost. I mean, this is a really interesting thing. So, I mean, prior to this, there's been the chat. There's been the talk of what did you think? I thought it wasn't. What did you think about the penalty shot on Harris?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't think it was.
However, I do want to say, was that a penalty on De Cruz right at the end?
Probably, yeah, quite possibly.
I think it was. I personally think it was, but there was no replay of it because it was literally just like,
yeah, that
was it. The referee, the last kick of the game.
Yeah, I'd like to see both of them in a bit more detail, but I'd like to see that one particularly again. He's got, on a kind of basic athletic level, he's got a lot of things that you'd want, De Cruz. It's just we haven't seen much from him other than he's a bit quick, and that that's kind of all. I think I was particularly damning a few weeks ago about him, that we've seen so little from him. But the balls he was whipping in from that left-hand side, that shows a real level of technique. That's an accomplished thing to do. To hit the ball with that sort of pace and accuracy is no mean feat. So it would be nice if we get a flash of brilliance from him between now and the end of the season. That would be a nice thing to see, a bit of a blossoming.
I think the interesting thing we can say is, for the fact that we're looking through the squad and we're saying where we're missing a few players. Effectively, we're missing Fletcher again.
Yeah,
we're missing Fletcher in the build to this, and we're definitely missing Fletcher again afterwards, which is so incredibly frustrating. To say we just have so many options on the bench to make positive and game-changing positions, and I think all of the substitutions looked to do something a little bit better. Maybe Odebajo was maybe the worst of those, but I don't think that's too damning.
Yeah, even Odebajo had some moments. I think he had both sorts of moments, didn't he? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So, are we wanting to do some scores?
I think we can. I think we can rattle through this pretty quickly. I haven't got these down, but I think we can kind of thrash these out between us.
Okay, so top 40 Joe Wildsmith.
I thought he did pretty well. I mean, I guess you really put the seed of doubt in my mind about that goal, but I think for most of it, he was pretty solid. I don't think this is... I really think we need to see Joe... I think we need to see Joe Wildsmith in net for the next game, personally.
I think he did well. There was a few things that he did particularly well. I thought there was a couple of crosses that he came out really strongly for, and took potentially dangerous situations and nipped them in the bud nice and smoothly. So I've got no issue with him. Keeping the shirt. I think that's probably fair enough. And you don't want to be chopping and changing goalkeeper if you can absolutely avoid it. It's the last position you really want to keep moving around on. So yeah, let's let him have a run and see how he goes. It does again. It's again that thing of, yes, they made a chance. Yes, there's a defensive mistake. If you've got a really good goalkeeper, it probably doesn't result in a goal, or it's a lot harder for them to score the goal.
Yeah, but I also feel like I'd probably look at all three goalkeepers that we have. I can't speak about Paul Jones, so we'll leave him out of the equation. But I think all three of them probably would have conceded that goal. It was a good finish. Maybe they would have done it in different. Some of them might have put themselves in a better situation to deal with it better. But
well, yeah, I'm more talking about looking to the slightly longer term of next season. I am not confident in our goalkeeping options. It's just another kind of nod towards that. I think it's not a comment for now. It's not particularly even a comment on this game, but it just shows you the value of, we talk about goalkeepers being worth X amount of points per season. I think that's another showing where if you have a great shot stopper, you probably win that game, or you don't need to come from behind to draw it. It's not a howling error. It's not an awful thing. It's just all of our goalkeepers are okay, but none of them are top draw. None of them are match-winning goalkeepers, and it's a bit of a shame that we're in that situation, having generally been so well covered in that position for certainly most of my time being a fan. But so today, what sort of score did you? Sorry if I missed that. Did you give him a score yet?
I'm giving him a score. Let's go with maybe a 6.5. Maybe he loses half a mark for the goal. I was going to say, this is going to sound really awful and really terrible, but the best situation we can be in next season, and this is going to sound awful, is if one or two of them get major injuries.
That is awful, but yeah, unfortunately. Or something miraculous happens and Westwood either decides, I can't stand, withering away towards the end of my career. I desperately want to go play somewhere, so he kind of bites the bullet with his contract in some way. Or somebody, it's not out of the question. You look at last night, or not last night, but in midweek, Man City had an injury at goalkeeper, so Scott Carson was the goalkeeper on the bench for Man City. So if some big Premier League club fancies Westwood as a coach/custodian that will do a job if he's needed for like 5 minutes per season as the third choice, then that would be good for us as well. But I doubt they'd pay money for him. Well, they'd pay him what we're paying him. Yeah.
So again, I don't know. This is we're just stomping all over
there'll be
old
other
ground,
days to talk about the goalkeepers, I think.
Oh, won't there ever?
So, do we do so we don't normally do 3-5-2s, but I guess we got to go centre backs and start with Liam Palmer.
I thought Liam Palmer did very well today. Yeah, I thought he was very good. What can I go for here? I think maybe I'm going to give him a 7.5.
I think he was the best out of the three centre backs. And,
I would completely
go along
agree with that.
Yeah, 7.5 for Palmer. Well done, Liam.
So I think I'm going to make this quite easy then. It's going to be a sliding scale. But anyway, Burner, I'm just going to go for a 7.
Okay.
I thought he was good. He had some nice moments getting forward. I love that little flick he had near the end out to the wing. That was pretty sweet. And he's quite solid as well, but maybe not quite as good as Liam Palmer. I think Liam Palmer was just Mr. Solid in the middle of the back three.
He looked so strong. He seemed bigger somehow.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting in context, in a different context. He looked a slightly different guy. I suppose as well as skinhead, he looks hard now.
It was well hard, yeah.
Well hard. So good.
And then I'm going to move on to Iorfa. I'm going to give Iorfa a 6.5 because he did that clanger, which nearly led to them scoring in the first half.
I also had convinced myself, when he was getting his yellow card right at the end, I'd convinced myself he'd picked up one in the first half, but he hadn't. I don't know why I'd done that. I think he did have a bad challenge that he kind of got away with, maybe.
Yeah, he didn't look his best today.
He looked a bit off the pace. And it's an interesting role for him because he's got all the responsibility there and we lose some of the fun of Iorfa in that he's got to be the disciplined one, really.
Yes.
I think it makes a lot of sense because Burner doesn't have the pace. So if he goes forward and gets caught out, you've at least got the pace of Iorfa to kind of cover for him. Whereas if Burner gets caught, if you're looking for Burner to cover him behind Iorfa, he may never get there. So it does make sense, but it is a shame because Iorfa's sort of rangy runs forward. Although he did allow himself one in the first half, but his rangy runs forward are one of the highlights of him being a centre back. Well, being involved in the defence at all. 6.5. Lucky not to get punished for a bit of a howler. I think that's fair enough. So we'll go for Jakob Murphy, the Russian wingback.
Jakob Murphy. I remember he was okay. I don't remember as good as he's been previously.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's much else to say. I'm going to give a 6.5.
Yeah, fair enough. I think, as I say, unfortunately, it looks like a bit of that hesitancy which made him quite a frustrating character in his early performances for us is back. So hopefully that is just a bit of being rusty and because he was just so decisive. Well, his good performances, he doesn't seem to think about it. He just takes the shot and does things early, takes people by surprise. And there was no surprise today. It was always wait for your man, front him up, and then run straight into him. There was just the only surprise was whether he came away on the other side with the ball somehow or not. So I think 6.5 is fair enough. The way they've got it here on Who Scored is they've got Kieran Lee next, so we might as well do that.
Kieran Lee. I liked Kieran Lee today. I thought this was probably some good Kieran Lee for what we're getting. I don't think he embarrassed himself by any means.
No, I thought he looked bright and had some real those little kind of interstitial moments. So what Kieran Lee's about, and he certainly popped up in a few of those, particularly first half. I do think he faded. I think he needed the substitution when it came. But yeah, one of his better performances, and I thought he did look bright. He looked bright and at it, and I don't know how, presumably the rest has been good for him. I don't know how often we'll see him play at that level, but yeah, nice highlight to have.
I think a comfortable. I think 7 is pretty much the average for this game. Pretty much that's kind of the case, isn't it?
No real star performances really from any of the starters at least. Wee Baz, Barry Bannon.
Excuse me. Bannon. I'm gonna go with Bannon. Was all right as well. He was okay. Again, I'm judging Bannon against Bannon nature, really.
Yes. I thought he had good... Some of his spreading the play was really good. He seemed to kind of end up in his shell a bit, and I thought his set pieces were terrible. And his shooting was bad. So it's kind of a classic Barry Bannon performance in a lot of ways. I'd be tempted maybe to give him a 6.5.
Yeah, I think 6.5 is probably fair, I would say, for Bannon in this one. Yeah.
Possibly slightly judging him against better performances from himself, but yeah, I don't... For me, the set pieces were woeful, because he gave away the ball for the goal, and then he had another set piece in the exact same position and did the exact same thing, passed it to the goalkeeper. Afterwards, it just didn't break out as well. But it's like, I know you would be in your head going, don't do that again. But yeah, he did. Okay, Massimo Luongo, Action Mass.
I'm going to give him a 7 as well. I thought he was pretty good today. I think it bears well to see him come back and to kind of get back up to fitness. I think we're just going to see even more and more from him. So I think it's a promising 7, where I think is a view of better performances to come.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. So to complete the midfield, then we've got Harris.
Harris. 7. I think I'm going to slightly kind of lean towards. I think I'm kind of half between a 6.5 and half between a 7. I think he's promising. I think, maybe I'm wondering now again, because we're at this basal level, maybe I'm getting that problem that a lot of people do with the start of a season where you get so excited and you think things are just going to get better. But I'm also wondering fitness-wise, the fact he played 90 minutes in this, I think is a huge credit. He had a lot of industry. He was good. He didn't embarrass himself. Had a few moments. Had a few kind of crosses that were kind of deflected behind in a few promising moments. I think a 7 is probably fair.
I'm happy to go with a 7. I think probably it's like effort and endeavour and level of fitness and sort of output, probably 7.5, maybe one of the better players. But in terms of what we actually got in terms of end product, more like a 6.5. So 7 kind of puts you in the middle. I think I might be tempted to drop him to 6.5. 6.5 because of the mistake for the goal. I know it wasn't all his fault, but it's not great. It's not great. Should have done better, I think. Okay. Jordan Rhodes.
Maybe we go with... I'm thinking of going with a generous 7 for Rhodes.
Generous 7.
I think some of his play was good. Got into some good positions. Again, this is probably number 8 in Rhodes' top 10 Wednesday performances. But unfortunately, that probably says a lot about how he's been doing previously. So it's okay. I'm happy to keep seeing more of Rhodes right now, considering also he's our only striker on the books for the end of the season.
I think 7 for Rhodes when Barry Bannon gets 6.5 is crazy. But,
it's all kind of relative, though, isn't it? It's all kind of relative, though, isn't it?
It's all Bannon relative. It's all Rhodes relative.
It is relative.
Wigwam, Connor Wickham.
I'm going to go for a 7. No, a 7, maybe 7.5 for the goal, we'll say.
You've got to, really, haven't you? Yeah.
I think he's probably up there with Liam Palmer for man of the match, possibly.
Any scores for subs?
Any scores for subs? Well, I think we can definitely give De Cruz a 7.
Yeah.
Maybe we saw De Cruz more of. Maybe he would have got a higher score, and maybe he would have probably won man of the match. I'll be honest.
It was nice. It was a nice comment. I thought him and Reach really seemed to add a bit of pace and muscle actually going forward. It was a nice sort of change when they got involved, both of them. But yeah, De Cruz had the end product. He had something to show for it. So that's that then. Football's back.
Football's back. Well, I guess also we can talk about the other people. Okay, other subs. Fletcher, we can't really give a grade to. Alex Hunt, I'm going to give a 7. Some nice moments. I'll give Reach a 7. I'll give Odebajo a 6.5.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I agree with all of those. I'm on board.
Cool.
So in terms of where that leaves us looking forward, effectively we're in the same position. We stay 15th, but we've ended up 1 point closer to the relegation zone due to Charlton's win over Hull. So we're now 8 points off the relegation zone. I just think, I know it's a bit maudlin to look that way, but with the potential of the charge sort of hanging over our heads and our form before we went into the lockdown, unfortunately, I think just keeping an eye on those bottom clubs and how we stand in relation to them is where we have to keep our minds for the time being.
Mm-hmm. I think so. I guess the interesting thing was prior to this, if football hadn't happened and we cancelled the season and we went to that unweighted points per game, we would end up with something that was 59.7, I think we said.
Okay.
So effectively, this is the way I'm kind of looking at it. I'm probably going to disappoint myself pretty massively here, Rich. We started with 48 points before the restart.
Mm-hmm.
37 games, 48 points. So, and looking into that, we need to basically get 60 points. So we need to get 12 points from these 9 games. Now we've got 8, so we've got to get 11 points from the remaining 8. So if we don't get 11 from 8, then it hasn't been better than the average. And unfortunately, I would say with our kind of situation, with what's happened with this season absolutely going off the edge of a cliff, I probably would have rather seen the average happen.
Yeah.
And I think I'm probably going to be disappointed if we don't get that. I think any solution to this, I think a real positive to look at that. So now we've played 38 games, we've won 13, we've drawn 10, we've lost 15. If we can win as many as we've lost, that is a huge positive for this season. But again, we're looking at a very difficult set of fixtures. And this is bad to say, but I'm only hoping that other clubs have the same problems that we have.
Yeah.
Because it's a nightmare to have, 8 players out of contract, 5 players on loan, and we still don't really know what's going on with the rest of the season and their long-term futures. We need a clear out. We just don't need a clear out in this environment. It's just wrong. It is so bad. It is awful. It is not helping us at all playing in this environment at this time.
Yeah, it is it's a tough run of fixtures we've got because Bristol City are sometimes we produce some good results at their place, but by and large they're a very good team, and that looks a tricky fixture on paper. We've got West Brom, who are one of the best teams in the league. Swansea have been sort of there or thereabouts most of the season. Preston's always hard work, and they seem to be a bit of a bogey team for us. QPR at their place, again, we've had some harrowing times down at QPR. Huddersfield, who knows, really? That's probably a kind of coin toss. Fulham, a very good team, and Borough we should beat. Talking about getting 11 points from that, it's pretty tough, actually. It would be nice to have maybe 3 that you were kind of fairly confident of, and then it's just picking up a couple of draws out of the remaining 5. But it's a tough old run, and today was a tough fixture on form, and we should have won. Mm-hmm. Hard to know, but then that's it. Everybody's in that position. I was listening to a bit of 5 Live coverage of one of the early Premier League games, and I've forgotten his name now. Pat Nevin, who is one of football's real good guys. He was talking about laughing with Mark Lawrenson about trying to make predictions this week, because who knows? It's the first week of the season again in so many ways. Everything's thrown up in the air, and we've seen if the Bundesliga is anything to go by, home advantage doesn't seem to exist when you're playing in an empty stadium. Away teams are winning way more often. They're scoring more goals. So, yeah. It's all a dice roll, but at the moment there's very few things you can kind of hang your hat on in terms of what we expect to happen. I would hope constantly sort of bumping around the bottom of the table, Borough would be a bit of a gimme, but on the last game of the season they might be desperate to get something to secure their safety, or you never know. And almost all the others if their chances of getting involved in postseason things drop off, then we might get some of those interesting results towards the end of the season, because sometimes you play a team that's kind of like been in the playoffs all year, and then when that drops away, the flip-flops are on.
The flip-flops are on.
Although it did feel at times like flip-flops were definitely they were in the eye line, if not quite on the feet yet. They were in the eye line at times in the pace of today's game. Right, well, on that note, we look forward to the game against Bristol City.
Oh, it's an early one. It's an early schmilly bird. I think I'll just completely lie in and then just get up and just fire up DAZN.
DAZN.
DAZN with Benone, hopefully.
Well, that would be nice to have a bit of Benone. Benone's creamy goodness.
Oh, good stuff. Episode 50.
Oh, dear. On that note, I think we should wrap things up. And I will say to you, Luke, I hope you have a good week. And I hope the folks listening at home also have a good week. And we'll see you the other side of that game against Bristol City.
See you guys then. Have a good one, everybody.
Cheerio. Bye.